We got a bidet! Hey everybody, and welcome back for another video. In today's video, we're talking about the latest episode of the Book of Boba Fett. Quite the episode, to say in my opinion. So we got a lot to cover here. Tony is going to give us the recap this week, and then we'll talk a little bit about the episode and our thoughts. So Tony, what happened this week?
So we start out with Mandalorian Season 3, Episode 1. With no, I'm just kidding. So we start out with a butcher shop of sorts. Oh, and by the way, before I get too far into this, I just want to say that there were a lot of small things that happened in this episode that I can't. There's just no way I can cover all of them. So I'm just going to cover the broad strokes and say, if you want the full experience, you really just need to go watch the episode. So it starts out in kind of a butcher shop situation. Mando shows up, presumably to collect a bounty because, you know, that's his thing. And then they do the whole the butcher in a butcher shop genre trope of gangster movies. You know, he does the whole I can take you in warm or cold thing, and people naturally are resistant, and then some, you know, fighting goes down and things like that. Mando actually uses the dark saber for most of his fighting, and he ultimately succeeds. However, he cuts himself in the process, and he kind of tells the workers of the butcher shop, like, hey, your boss is dead, so, you know, you're free to go do whatever you want. So after that, we cut to a literal halo ring, which I say that completely joking because visually it actually looked really cool. So it's basically a halo ring, and Mando is walking around, going to the person who hired him, and we get this awesome 2-minute unbroken continuous shot of Mando interacting with the area and controlling his limping and things like that. So he goes and, you know, says, hey, you know, I completed the job, whatever. But he wants information, and they say you have to do some more things for me. I believe that's what happened. And he was like, no. And then I believe he threatens them somehow. And then they're like, okay, fine, we'll tell you. So that gets all figured out. He does the job on the house, and then he flies to Tatooine because, you know, it's Star Wars, everything has to come back to Tatooine, getting on and off the commercial freighter, he had to turn in his weapons, but nothing happened to them. He got them back at the end. And then he goes to the hangar of the character, and I can't remember her name from Mandalorian Season 2, the mechanic with the kind of fro-ish hair and things like that. And it seems like Mando's goal, the long-term goal, was to get a ship, because his previous one is, you know, kind of was not long for this world in the last season. And she offers him a Naboo starfighter that she was kind of working on, and Mando was kind of hesitant, but she eventually convinces him and said she dated some Jawas at one time, and that was a really interesting image to think about. So they, oh my gosh, I completely forgot about the talking to the Mandalorians. Oh my gosh, I'm sorry. I told you there's a lot in this episode. Holy smokes. Okay, so back up after he collected the bounty, he went and talked to the blacksmith, Mandalorian, and there was another bigger Mandalorian. And they talked about a lot of things. basically they kind of recapped Clone Wars and Rebels and talked about some more Mandalorian lore and things like that. Talked about the dark saber naturally, and Mando and the bigger guy ended up in a ceremonial duel over the dark saber. And while Mando won, he kind of struggled in the fight because he's still kind of working on his connection with the dark saber. And while that connection is weak, the saber feels very heavy to him. So he ultimately bested the Mandalorian, but then the blacksmith asked him if he ever took off his helmet, and he said yes. And then she said that you are no longer Mandalorian. The only way to redeem yourself is to go to some, it was like a spring somewhere. I forgot what planet it was on. Oh no, it was on that moon where the Death Watch hung out. But he said that that moon is no more, I believe that's what he said. So that's kind of probably what's going to happen in season 3. We also get a flashback to there's so much happened in this episode. It's insane. We also got a flashback to the Great Purge of Mandalore, which is a really cool visual. It had kind of like a Terminator thing going on. Okay, so go back to the getting the ship. Most of the episode is that part of the episode is some character back and forth, but ultimately they are building the ship. And Mando's kind of hesitant because it's not like a cargo ship; it's more of like a speeder ship. But eventually they make it, and he tests it out, and he kind of digs it, at least for now. And he, just conveniently does the pod race route, and to kind of test it out. And he goes into space and has some run-ins with the law and whatever, but he eventually gets out. So he gets back and he's excited, and then Fennec Shan shows up, kind of connecting the last episode, and is like, "Hey, we need your help." And he's like, "Okay, but I gotta visit a little friend first, who the Mandalorian blacksmith, I presume, made some sort of armor or something for Grogu, so that'll be interesting." And then the credits rolled, and so that's pretty much it. And that's not even like that's probably half the episode. I just kind of covered the broad strokes. You all just need to go watch it for yourself. So apologies if that was a not so great recap, but
no, I thought it was great. It covered everything that was in the episode. Like you said, if you want to see the little tidbits that happen here and there, definitely check it out, because I know we point out things here on our discussion that happen, and usually there's like maybe 3 or 4 things to talk about, but this episode probably has at least 10 or 20. So yeah, definitely check out the episode if you want to see the little tidbits that are in there.
Yes, and I'm out of breath now, so
we'll probably mention a couple of them at least. But Sarah, what were your thoughts on the episode? We'll say that.
Overall, I liked the episode. I feel like I say that every week, but I did really like it. I know it's interesting. I've heard a lot of people say, probably us included, it's funny that our favorite episode so far of the Book of Boba Fett doesn't even have Boba Fett in it. He's not in it in this episode at all. Even Fennec's only in it like the last 5 minutes or 2 minutes or whatever it is. But, even without that, it was kind of nice because we've been so long without seeing Mando since last season. So even though the next season of Mandalorian is a long ways away, it was nice to kind of get this sense of, what he's up to and whatnot. And I really have some theory on where we're going next with this season, but I don't know if you want to get to that yet or later.
Yeah, we can talk about it in a little bit.
Okay.
After Tony and I also pitch in here.
Go for it.
So my thoughts on the episode, kind of like what Sarah said. I liked it. I liked it a lot, actually. It was another one of these episodes where it's like, I really hope this episode isn't going to end anytime soon, just because I want more and more out of it. I thought it was pretty cool to see like the little Easter eggs thrown out there. The biggest one being the Naboo starfighter and going through the pod race. I'm pretty sure just because it felt like I was watching episode one. This is why I say it. I'm pretty sure they filmed when he was going through the track, pretty much almost like shot for shot of the way it was filmed with the race. So it's almost like they took the speeder out, or not speeder, the pod racer out, and then inserted the starfighter kind of a thing. I almost wonder if they did do something like that. But they did paint it a little bit more because we saw like a creature in the raceway, which was a womp rat. That's how you pronounce it. Um, uh, and then another really cool thing I really liked was seeing the droid, at least the type of droid from Fallen Order. I think it was BD is the style. I was listening super carefully to see if she would ever say the droid's name, and she kept saying droid, droid, and I was waiting to see if she would say BD, and then we'd get some sort of reference to Fallen Order. Wondering if Cal is with Luke, kind of a thing. But that was a very cool thing to pop up. It was something that definitely grabbed my attention when I saw it, especially since it was like the first thing you saw in a scene change. So it was like, oh my gosh, what's going on here? Two other things that I really want to hit on. One thing that I was really surprised that Disney put in this episode, because I don't see Disney trying to poke at certain political topics. It was just a small little line in the episode. Tony talked about it a little bit. The event. It's when Mando is getting onto the ship to transport to Tatooine, and the droid says, like, put your weapons in here, and he goes, I can't because it's part of my religion. And the droid was basically like, I don't care, put your stuff in here, and then you can get on the ship. I was really surprised that they put something like that in the episode because, as a society, we're more inclusive here. We're, religious freedoms are more accepted. Like there's a little bit of leeways here and there. But in this episode, it was like, no, you have to abide by our rules and put your stuff in there. So I thought that was kind of interesting to see in this episode. The other thing I wanted to point out is when Mando is testing out the starfighter and he's flying, he goes, up into the space. He leaves the planet and he's zipping around. And once again, he gets pulled over by the police, by the rebels. And I thought this scene wasn't super necessary. Every time I see something like this, I feel like it's if you ever watch Family Guy, sometimes they have things that happen in the episode that just stop the episode, and then you're just like, come on, I want to get back to what we were doing. If what's happening, because the big part to take from it, if it's, not just a cop scene where they're stopping him for speeding, one of the guys mentions that, hey, aren't you so-and-so from before? I recognize your voice. And that's when Mando kind of like takes off after he knows that he's not going to get in trouble. If that's leading to something, great. But if it's not, I really, really don't like.
One of the pilots was the guy from the end of Mandalorian season 2.
Are you talking about the guy that?
Guy with the gray beard.
Yeah, the one that was talking to him about the reference.
Yeah.
That's what I was saying. Like, if that is a connection going forward, then I'm kind of okay with it, depending where it goes. I did not see this in the credits. I kind of heard it through another source. I want to say it was Star Wars Theory, but I can't remember because I've listened to so many people. But apparently the other pilot was the guy that was used to play Luke at the end of Mando season.
Oh.
So that's kind of a small connection there. That's why some people believe that, Luke is going to be in the next episode, but we'll get into that in a little bit. Tony, what'd you think?
I love this episode. It was probably, and not to bash the previous episodes, because obviously I've been on here saying that I've thoroughly enjoyed them. I kind of gave the past episodes, I guess, kind of a pass if you want to put it like that, because it was just fun escapist fantasy. Not to say that they were like awfully produced episodes, because they weren't, but ultimately I kind of took them as just escapist fun fantasy. But this was probably the most well produced episode, from the writing to the cinematography to the writing, all that stuff. I do want to address the narrative that's being created. Sarah, you brought it up anecdotally, but some people, are ultimately being like, see, the show sucks because the best episode didn't even have Boba Fett in it. And I think that shows that we as a society have forgotten how to consume stories, because pretty much every form of entertainment, whether it be like, especially in TV shows, less so in movies, but it's just because they're shorter, but it's still kind of there. And in books, so especially TV and books, sort of movies, but in TVs and books, it is quite routine to have episodes or chapters that deviate from the main story and focus on another character or characters. So I was not, I was a little surprised that most of it, just because I didn't expect it. But once I kind of got the idea that, this was Mando's episode to kind of figure out where he's at, I was kind of like, oh, okay, cool. Yeah. So this is the deviation episode, which, like, every good show has a deviation episode. And even, I'm becoming an avid reader as of late, and the books I'm reading, there's like a chapter occasionally where it's like, oh, let's figure out what this character's doing and whatever. With, the goal of, everything kind of coming together at the end. I mean, that's how Dune was. Dune had like 3 different sets of characters that they were following and kind of jumping in between. So I took this as very normal, very routine, a little unexpected, but not bad. So with that out of the way, yeah, I love the episode. I love the world building. I love the lore. I love the philosophy being conveyed. I love seeing Mandalorian society being explained and expanded on, because it's more of the fantasy aspect of Star Wars. And yeah, I was grinning from ear to ear the whole time, and like Jeremy said, I didn't want this episode to stop when it was over. So that's the sign of a good episode. So yeah, I loved it.
Kind of a follow-up to how you were saying, the way that books, sometimes are, where they have that chapter where it's a bit different. Have you seen Game of Thrones?
Yes.
Do you think the audience reception would be different if they did it where they had like a piece of Boba's past, a piece of Boba in modern time, and then a piece of Mando going through it in each episode? Kind of like how Game of Thrones split it into like 4 or 5 different families per episode.
It's a good question. Maybe my gut reaction is maybe not, just because I could see then the narrative being created of like, oh, Jon Favreau didn't trust that Boba Fett could kind of stand on his own, so they needed Mandalorian to come prop it up. You know what I mean? And now it's Mandalorian season 2.5 and all that stuff. So probably not, but who knows? I could wake up tomorrow and think something different.
I think that's a fair point. Especially with the thought of, this could potentially being the best episode and Boba not being in it. So where do you think it's going forward? Any thoughts?
Well, if we're thinking that there's only, 2 episodes left?
I think there's 2.
Yep, 2.
So we know there's this battle coming up at some point, and we know that Boba has to buy muscle, right? Well, I really don't think Mando is all they're going to need. Like, that's it. It's just the 3 of these guys and their little moped posse, and then they've got Chrysanthemum, right? I don't think this is going to be enough to fight the whole pike system. I think they're going to need a lot more. And so this next episode, I think, is going to have to figure out where the rest of these soldiers are coming from. And if Mando's not going to fight until after he goes and sees Grogu, I could easily see that being a half or a full episode on its own. It seems kind of unlikely that they would do another episode of just Mando, being that there's only 7 episodes and you'd have 2 of them being just Mando. I feel like that's not really what they would choose to go with, but I don't know how else they can really structure it to get him to be able to get to the fight. I don't know. I'm almost kind of tempted to say that the fight's not going to happen this season. I don't see how they could wrap it up in 2 episodes to have that happen now.
So you think it'll be the cliffhanger?
I think it's going to be the cliffhanger.
What do you think?
Perhaps. I mean, that is a very solid theory, I would say. My first thought, when we saw Mando still collecting bounties, because a lot of the times in stories when you have a character that goes through like a huge arc, they end up being kind of a different person than when they started naturally. So I thought it was just as something different. It was kind of cool to see Mando still ultimately being a bounty hunter, even though the events of season 1 and 2 kind of changed him. And my first thought was like, oh, did he unknowingly take a bounty from the Pikes to maybe mess with Boba or something like that? But obviously that didn't come to fruition. But so I mean, I've been thinking that too. With there's no way they have enough firepower to take on the Pikes, even just their presence in Tatooine. So my thought is that there's just something. There's more surprises to come. Or Mando calls in some favors of either some other Mandalorians or some people that he's met along the way in seasons 1 and 2 of his show or something like that. Like basically there's still networks between all the characters to be tapped to call in favors and things like that.
However, he's not a Mandalorian anymore.
That's true, but he has encountered Mandalorians that have a different belief system
That's right.
than his more rigid roots, like Bo-Katan and her squad were, believed some different things. So, he could find some Mandalorians that don't care that he's not a Mandalorian anymore. But that is true.
I want to hear your thoughts on where it's going, and then I have a question for you.
Yeah, so I want to touch on something that Sarah said, because I'm not quite sure if we covered it. When Fennec approaches Mando, she throws a money bag at him, and he tells her it's on the house and gives the money back. So she mentions that it's like it pays very well. It's a large sum. So they have that money to also go and find muscle. So Mando was free to help fight the Pikes, so they could actually get some more help there. Kind of where I think it could go, it might be wishful thinking, but hey, we can dream, is I think Mando is going to go see Grogu. He's going to give him the little chainmail thing that was made.
Whatever it was.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it is, based on the little shot of them being like used or whatever. I think he's going to approach Luke, and there's going to be, like, Luke is going to sense this issue with Mando, and then Mando's going to come out about, hey, the Darksaber isn't, really working for me. And I think Luke is going to try to help him find that mix. And then also in that mix, this is the wishful thinking part. My hope is that maybe Luke has another connection, whether it be Cal, like I mentioned earlier, or even bigger, because I think we talked about it last week or maybe the week before. Actually, I think it was last week, because that's when they mentioned buying muscle. So apparently in the comic book somewhere along the line, Boba and Han actually teamed up for something. And I wonder.
I might have mentioned that last week.
Yeah, I think Tony mentioned that. I think if Luke could be a connection here, there's a chance that Han could help in the fight, whether it's directly or indirectly. Maybe he just assumes he's helping Luke, which is helping Mando, and then shows up and oh, there's Boba too. Um, but it could be a very cool way to get that mix into it as well. Because there's rumor that Harrison Ford has done something with Star Wars. We don't know what, but it could be in like this deep fake thing like Luke had. So maybe this is a way to get Han Solo back in the thick of things. But there's tons of possibilities where we're going. So,
and I hope that, because I think the sense among perhaps the less toxic Star Wars fans is that there is a sense of excitement now and possibility of even though there's only 2 episodes left, but whatever, better late than never. There's a sense of excitement and unpredictability about this show now, and I think people are getting really excited to see where it goes, and I think that's all positive for the franchise and for the fandom.
yeah.
How do you guys feel about Mando being the ruler of Mandalore, but not being a Mandalorian himself anymore?
Well, I think season 3 is going to be his quest to redeem that, because the blacksmith told him how to do it. So he's probably going to figure out a way to do that, and then he could maybe take the throne.
Yeah, I think that's probably what's going to happen. I think a flip side to it would be if Mando gets to the end of this season and basically feels that it's something he doesn't want. Like if he doesn't want to be the ruler of Mandalore,
He's already said that.
he could find a way to get rid of it. Like he may still go redeem himself and, be a Mandalorian, but I think there's a chance that he doesn't want to be the one in charge. So he could figure out some sort of way to dispose of the Darksaber in a sense.
We kind of went over that last season of Mando, though, at the end, because he was just trying to give it to Bo-Katan. Like, here, I don't want it. I don't want to rule Mandalore. And then that's where we were first introduced to the idea of, you want it in combat, it's yours. I can't just take it from you.
Yeah, well, we were seeing different...
Which they touched on again this episode.
We've seen it twice. Whether it's... So it was discussed in this episode that, the Darksaber has to be won for it to work properly. And clearly things aren't quite working with Mando with using the Darksaber. So it really makes me wonder, do you have to kill the person? And the reason why I say that is because the jetpack Mandalorian, the big guy, had said to Mando, did you win it in combat? Did you kill the person? And Mando was like, I didn't kill him, but he's going to the Republic and he's going to be killed by execution. And so that might be kind of like his loophole of, I didn't have to kill someone to get it, which makes me wonder if that's the issue with what's going on here. Because, then the two of them duked it out and he didn't kill the jetpack guy. So even when the jetpack guy was trying to use the Darksaber, he was looking like he was wielding a huge heavy axe, just like Mando does when he's using it. So I think the politics and technicalities of this Darksaber are really starting to hit in this episode a little bit.
And I was wondering if it was more like fencing. Fencing, you don't kill your opponent, but you can still best them. You can still win. And so that's kind of the reason why I thought, even though he didn't kill Moff Gideon, that it's still his to keep. Because that's what, he wasn't, like Bo-Katan knew that he didn't kill him, but still said, you won it. It's yours.
Yeah, but she also cheated in the past, so I wouldn't take her opinion. I don't think
That's a
you
fair
know
point.
that, though.
We've heard it before somewhere. I believe the armorer lady said something about that this episode, because he asked her about Bo-Katan.
Yeah.
My guess is, all the rules and such on the Darksaber is a reflection of the larger, one of the larger themes that's explored in the Mandalorian show, and that's, belief systems. And so do you have to kill your opponent? Do you not? It probably depends on the Mandalorian group. And that's probably just taking an educated guess. My guess is that's kind of a reflection or inspiration of the fact that in our worlds, different world religions have different, denominations and things like that that think slightly different things. So that's probably going to be handled in season 3, and the belief systems of the different groups are probably going to be continue to be expanded on and explained.
Yeah, that's my hope. I think it's gonna make, because like before this show came out, I don't think we, like the general audience, knew much about Mandalore or the Mandalorians, unless you watched the Clone Wars and you kind of got that taste for it. But I think this show is doing a great job at like filling in the history of it so that we actually get the rich Star Wars lore.
Honestly, I didn't know really anything about Mandalore or Mandalorians before the Mandalorian show, because I'll be honest, I mean I love Star Wars, but I only really had watched the movies prior to the Mandalorian show. But once it was the season finale of season 1 of Mandalorian, where Moff Gideon had the Darksaber, and the internet like freaked out about it, and I'm like, what's the big deal? And then I dug into it a little bit, and then that's what inspired me to go back and watch Clone Wars and Rebels. So yeah, I would agree with your assessment.
I think the first time that I knew about it was from Knights of the Old Republic. I think the Mandalorians played a decent role in that, and that's where my first introduction was, but I didn't know much about it. I was quite young playing that game. I've already mentioned to Sarah that she should watch the Siege of Mandalore so that she can get a little more there. If anything, watch that.
Yes.
Add it to the list.
Anything else for this episode? Anything else you want to talk about?
I think that about covers it for me.
Yeah, I mean, I think that about covers it. Like I said, there's probably thoughts in my head that I forgot to mention, because there's like just so much was packed into this episode. But I think for now I'm okay.
Cool. The thing that I'll kind of end it on is going back to something that Tony said. This episode, I think it felt different compared to the Boba episodes. Like you said, the cinematography, the writing, everything. I don't know if you mentioned it in this video, but you texted to me. You said Bryce Dallas Howard. I think all of this really came together. It honestly really felt like Mandalorian, because it felt like that these two shows felt really different, even though they're made by the same people. Just the quality of the episode was really amazing, and I think that sets a really good precedent with these last two. Super excited to see the next two. I'm curious to see where it ends. So we'll go ahead and we'll wrap it up here. If you enjoyed this discussion, make sure to turn on your notifications. That way you are notified when our next one drops. It will be around the same time next week, where we will cover episode 6. That's what comes out next week. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel, drop us a like if you like this video, and drop us a comment letting us know your favorite part from the episode. Thank you, Tony, for being with us.
Of course.
Thank you, Sarah. And then, as always, everybody, thank you for watching. We'll see you next time.